Okay. Okay, so welcome everyone. And I really want to thank Rabbi Deutsch for doing this. I want to thank I want the group to understand that even though we do Mesiras Nefesh by coming on to Daven every day and listen, every speaker that comes on, it's mamish Mesiras Nefesh. And it's such a tova for us. Like it's such a gift. We're getting this Torah all the time from every single type of backgrounds and all these unbelievable, amazing speakers and Torah educators that I feel so grateful, Mamish. Thank you so much for agreeing. So, Rabbi Eli Deutsch is your go to guru for all things Jewish philosophy, Hasidus, and Kabbalah. Whether he's mentoring individuals, couples, or groups, Rabbi Deutsch's courses on personal development, dating, marriage, and spiritual living are guaranteed to ignite positive change. He's got two best-selling books, Jewish by Choice, a Kabbalistic take on life and Judaism, is hailed as the ultimate guide to unlocking the mysteries of Kabbalah and Judaism in a refreshingly clear and practical manner. The Case for Judaism is widely recognized as the authoritative work for answering the age-old question, why we believe in Judaism. Plus, his groundbreaking male-female dynamic mythology promises relationship revolutions that last a lifetime. And so I feel very honored and privileged and grateful to introduce Rabbi Deutsch. Rabbi Deutsch, there you are. Okay. And I'm going to go off my microphone so we can see you. We don't see you.
Okay, I'm here now, though.
Oh,
Can you
there
see
you
me
are.
now?
Okay, Rabbi, thank you so much.
Okay. Okay, thanks so much for having me, and definitely amazing yasher koach to all of you guys for being here on, from what I understand, is a regular basis. I see no sound. Is that for real? You can't hear me?
No, we hear you perfectly. We hear
Oh,
you.
okay. Okay, great, great, great. Okay, so yeah, really, yasher koach to you guys, day in and day out. For me, it's once coming in here. But amazing it's all about the consistency, and from what I understand, that's what's happening here. So yasher koach to everybody here. Okay, so the topic that we chose to discuss here today is the male-female dynamic. And one thing that we're going to share, one thing that we're going to see is that there's a system of parallels. We're going to see what we're going to go through now is a way of seeing things, a certain system, and seeing how it plays out and ultimately plays out in our lives and in our relationships. And interestingly enough, the deeper side of Judaism, sometimes referred to as Kabbalah, is actually, the word Kabbalah is related to the Hebrew word makbil, which means parallel, because one of the foundational principles of all Kabbalistic thought is that everything here in this physical world is a parallel to a deeper spiritual reality, which means that once we understand a certain system, we're able to see how it plays out on all levels, spiritual, psychological, emotional, physical, personal, worldly. So we're going to do our best to at least give a little bit of a window into that today, specifically when we're talking about the concept of masculine and feminine, and then hopefully get some insight into relationships based on that, right? And hopefully it can be helpful in our own lives, in our own homes, and in different things that we're hopefully searching for. All right, so firstly, without going into a whole, a while ago, I used to go to a whole elongated thing about how we get to this point. But for now, let's just skip to it and basically explain that what we mean by male and what we mean by female, right? And just to clarify, when I say male and female, I'm talking about the concepts or the powers or the aspects of male and female, or masculine and feminine. Whereas if I want to talk about men and women, or I'll say guys and gals, just because they're both one syllable. It makes it go quicker. So what we mean by male is the concept of giving forth energy in potential. And what we mean by female is the concept of receiving that energy and actualizing it into something real, right? And so we see this in a bunch of different ways. And I think we should start at the top. All right. So let's start spiritually. How do we see male and female spiritually? So in terms of our relationship with Hashem, right? In our relationship with Hashem, we see So Hashem gives forth the energy into us, into our opportunities, right? And the truth is, you see in any relationship, actually, let's start it like this. You'll see in any relationship that in our lives, right, we see that the level of the relationship depends on the quote unquote lower of the two in the relationship, right? So if a guy walks up to a young lady and says, I love you, and she says back to him, I want nothing to do with you. So he might be totally in love, but the relationship is holding, he's at 100%, she's at 0%. The relationship is holding steadily at 0%, right? Because he might be in love, but relationship is a two-way street, and therefore relationship is only as strong as the one who wants it least, right? And so if we take that principle and bring it over to our relationship with the infinite, we find an awe-inspiring yet empowering idea, right? And that is that Hashem is the infinite giver. He's constantly giving us opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to have the relationship with him. The question then becomes, how much do we choose back to God? To the extent we choose back to Hashem, that's the extent the relationship is going to be there. To the extent not, it simply won't be there. And so in that respect, we see that and this is our typical way of looking at Hashem. And in that way of looking at it, Hashem is embodying the male principle, giving forth energy in potential, giving forth the energy and the opportunity for this relationship. And we embody the female. We are receiving that energy and actualizing it into something real to the extent that we do. Right? All right, let's bring it down a notch. Let's look at it in terms of worldly. Worldly, we see the concept of the sun and the moon. Same principle applies. The sun has the capacity, has the potential, has the ability to light up the entire world at night. How much light practically actually gets here depends on the positioning of the moon. So again, in this way, we see that the sun is embodying the masculine concept, giving forth energy in potential. And the moon is embodying the feminine concept, receiving that energy, receiving that light, and actualizing it into something real, making it practical, right? Making it practical for us. By the way, of course, this is also one reason why the first mitzvah we receive when the Jewish people become a nation, when they leave Egypt and leave Mitzrayim and become a nation, the first mitzvah that we get is the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh, of sanctifying the new moon, right? So at first glance, it might seem like, hey, that's kind of random, but really the idea is very, very clear that we are supposed to be the moon of the world, right? That Hashem is 100% here. Hashem is 100% here and beyond. But how much is that perceivable? How much are we aware of it? How much are we conscious of that? That is based on the positioning of the Jewish people, on what the Jewish people are doing, right? This is the idea of what the Jewish people this is our national mission, is to be an Or LaGoyim, and a light unto the nations. It's not that we are the source of that light, but we reflect the light of Hashem. What do we mean by light? Light just means that which illuminates that which is there, right? You walk into a room, you're able to see what's there because of the light. So it's the same thing. What is the light of Hashem? It means that you're able to see the reality of Hashem. The Jewish people are supposed to be an Or LaGoyim, those who are revealing the reality of the world, namely Hashem, to the nations of the world, to those who are not necessarily aware on their own. And so in this relationship, we embody the moon. Hashem, again, embodies, quote unquote, the sun, right? And so this is the Jewish purpose. By the way, this is also the concept of Shekhinah. If you go to a lot of classes, they'll translate Shekhinah as God's presence, or something along those lines. But what does that mean, right? It kind of leads to a lot of what I believe are misunderstandings, right? When I was a kid, there was a song that was played that said that Hashem was up, up, down, down, left, right, all around, here, there, and everywhere is where he can be found. Now you want to tell me that there's Shekhinah, that there's divine presence? Are you saying that Hashem is in one place more than another? Hashem is Ein Sof. Hashem is infinite, beyond, everywhere, 1,000% and beyond. How can we say that he's more present in one place than another? And of course, we can extend that question to the Holy Land. Are we saying that one area, there's God more in that place? Hashem is more in one place versus another? So that means we're starting to slice and dice Hashem up. We're putting more Hashem in one place than another. It doesn't work. Hashem is Ein Sof. So how do we look at this? So I think a good explanation and a good parallel for this is, imagine we were to put a super duper advanced satellite into outer space, and its beams exist 100% on planet Earth everywhere. And then me and you, we walk outside with our cell phones, and your cell phone is getting 5 bars of reception, and my cell phone is getting only 3 bars of reception. Now, how is that possible? The beams exist everywhere 100% on planet Earth. How is it that you're getting 5 bars and I'm only getting 3? Of course, the answer is that you have Verizon and I have T-Mobile, right? It's in the receiving device. Your phone is functioning better than my phone for some reason, either the phone or the service. But the thing that's on the receiving end, your antenna is higher up than my antenna. And therefore, those beams are more present with your phone than they are with my phone. And this is the concept of what we mean by Shekhinah. And once we understand that, we can understand the seemingly contradictory sources that talk about how the Shekhinah went with the Jewish people into exile. And then there's another source which says the Shekhinah is at the Kotel. So hold on a second. Where is the Shekhinah? The answer is Shekhinah means how much is Hashem present? How much are we able to be tuned into the reality of Hashem? So based on where the Jewish people go, there's a concept of more tuned inness going on over there. But also there's a reality of the Holy Land, that the beams are higher up. The antenna is higher up in the Holy Land. The antenna is higher up at the Kotel. That's the spiritual nature of the place. And so this is all, can you hear the idea? This all fits into the concept, the concept of the feminine, right? And this is why Shekhinah is associated with the concept of the female or the feminine, right? What does that mean? It means to say yes, Hashem exists 1,000% and beyond, but am I tuned into that? Where is it more actualized? Where is it more where is it more perceivable? Where is it more manifest? Where is it more expressed? Where is it more experienced? That is the Shekhinah concept, and that's the concept also of the Holy Land. And this is also the concept of what the Jewish people are supposed to be about in terms of nations. That is our purpose, right? So this is the concept. The concept is the masculine concept is the concept of giving forth energy and potential. The feminine concept is the concept of receiving that energy and potential and actualizing it into something real, right? And obviously the most physical-based, easiest way to see this is, if you look, is the reproductive system, right? Man gives forth energy in potential, right? Woman receives that energy and potential and possibly actualizes it into something real in the form of another human being, right? But the thing is, if you think that just is only relevant to the human reproductive system, right? So then you're missing the bigger picture. You're missing the point. That is just the most physical, base, easiest, most tangible way to see it, to see these concepts of masculine and feminine. However, of course, there's a grander system at play, right? If we don't see that, if we only see the most tangible, we're missing the bigger picture, missing the more holistic or more spiritual way of viewing the world and understanding how the world is functioning. So this is the masculine and feminine concept, right? And I want to give you another angle on it right now. I want to give you another angle on it. Another way of looking at this also, certain wonderful Jewish sources teach this, the Maharal teaches this, and others as well, talks about the concept of Tsura and Chomer, which is otherwise known, which is in English, form and material. That everything in the physical world contains both Tsura and Chomer, form and material, okay? The form concept is the concept of the form, like, so let's for example say, imagine you have a wooden table in front of you. So the Chomer, the material, is the wood, and the tableness of the thing is the form, right? And according to the Maharal of Prague and others, this is also the concept of masculine and feminine, right? That the masculine is the concept of Tsura, which is the concept of the form, the shape, the direction, the vision, the follow through, right? And the feminine concept is the concept of the material, right? And so, right, for example, also, best way to see this also, the Maharal of Prague explains what is the greatest example of Homer, of material that we have, is water, right? Why? Because water on its own doesn't have a particular form or direction, right? For example, how do you say water in Hebrew in singular? That is the correct answer. There is no way to say water in Hebrew in singular, right? And mayim, of course, is in plural with the yud mem at the end. And also, even if you say may, so really may, like for example, here in Israel, you have a water company called May Eden. It's waters of Eden, right? It's just a kind of conjunction, but there's no way to say water in Hebrew in singular, because that would imply a specific direction. And one of the main ideas here of water is it can, whatever tzura you put it in, it allows itself to take on that direction, take on that form, right? And so the Maharal of Prague explains that this is also the concept of, and he aligns this with the concept of Zachar Nekeva, of male and female. And so what I want to share with you is, if this is the system with which we are working, right? So then let's understand that this is also going to affect how we approach everything, how men approach things, how women approach things, how we approach things, certainly in relationships. Right, so for previously, I shared with you, right, I talked about male and female in terms of spiritual, in terms of worldly, sun and the moon, in terms of, these different examples. We didn't get into emotions and psychology and all of that. Well, we're going to do, so I want to do a little bit of that with you guys right now. Okay, and so let's see how this plays out. Let's see how this plays out for in terms of our personalities, in terms of who we are, how we want to be seen, and also how we want our partner to be relating to us, right? So, for example, let's start with the guy side of things, right? If the men are the concept of tzura within human relationships, and of course, it doesn't always work this way, but this is definitely a generalization, and we use generalizations because they're generally accurate, right? So this concept of tzura is, again, the concept of vision, the concept of direction, the concept of follow through, right? So first and foremost, a masculine way of showing up, right? And what I find a lot also in terms of relationships, things that are needed oftentimes for the men, and there's a problem if there's a deficiency, first and foremost, is in terms of who they are. Who are they being? What is their why? What is their purpose? What is their direction? Are they following up on it? Are they living it for real, right? Firstly, certainly everybody needs this, but especially men need this, and also women will need this from their person, right? From their person, from their guy, right? So first and foremost, one way of seeing this is this concept of being your why, living your why, right? Being, having a clarity on what you're about, and being able to go ahead, step up, and follow through with it, right? Another one is for the guys is to be an affector and not an affected, right? Now, this is super relevant in relationships, and this comes out that what does that mean? That means for men in relationships, this means to be able to have clarity on who you are, the direction you're going in, and in a situation of relationship, be able to contain, to be able to contain wherever the emotional state of the woman, of the wife is, right? Meaning to say, once, like for example, once, and probably more than once, I had a guy would say to me, my wife, she really knows how to push my buttons. She really knows how to, get me, I guess to lose himself or whatever, right? Um, but that's a problem, right? That's a problem. That means to say, a guy needs to be able to be an effector and not an affected, right? It can't be that a guy is going to that his wife's emotional state is going to be able to change him, right? Because or it's certainly that that it can't be that he's going to be able that he's going to lose his emotional equilibrium because of wherever she's at, right? Why is this so? The main downfall for this is that then the woman isn't able to feel safe. The woman isn't able to feel held, and so that's the thing. A lot of times, and this is a lot of times what I say to the guys, right? That in many situations, there's a side of the woman that will challenge, that will do all sorts of different things, whether it be complain or challenge or change their mind or doubt you. But really, her deepest desire is to feel secure and taken care of, to be able to trust you, which means that if she loses it, right, can you be able to be empathetic without, right? Don't be a piece of cardboard, right? Don't ignore it. That's not what we're saying. But to be able to be empathetic towards it, but not be sucked into it, right? To be able to see through it, so to speak, to be able to contain it, to allow her to go through her emotional situation without you also getting dragged into that emotional situation, right? And this is the concept of tsura. He's able to hold a certain form. He's able to have a certain direction. He knows who he is and where he's going. And when she's able to experience that from her husband, from her guy, so then she's able to let go. Then she's able to, so to speak, melt into where he is because she can trust him. She can lean on. He stands for what he stands for. He is who he is. His midot are not dependent on her midot, right? His emotional intelligence is not dependent on where her emotions are at any particular moment. Now she can let go because she can rely on him being who he is, right? So this is a super excellent example of how this surah concept plays out in relationships, right? And a similar thought also is to understand the difference between an out of control man versus an out of control woman, right? A child certainly knows the difference. That a child's able to intuit that, okay, if my mother is losing it to a certain extent, okay, like that's a more natural thing and it is what it is. But if the father is acting like that, so then the kid is like shaken, right? The kid is like that's shaking the fabric, the foundations of the building, of the home, right? And so it's super important for a guy to step into this masculine concept of tsura, of having a certain vision, knowing who he is, knowing why he is, and being able to hold his equilibrium and be able to contain the different fluctuations of his wife and also of the kids as well, and to not get caught up in it. And then for him to also be on an emotion, some kind of emotional roller coaster with it, right? That is losing that in that situation is not going to be effective and conducive to couplehood and for his wife being able to align with him and step into respect with him. Okay, so that's the masculine side, right? The feminine side, right? Women take on the concept stereotypically of Homer, material. What does that look like? That is the concept of flow, right? There's a concept of flowing, right? Again, think water. There's a concept of flowing. It's the concept of radiance. And it's also very much so the concept of vulnerability, right? And what do we mean by vulnerability? Because a lot of times if you mention the word vulnerable, if you play a word game with people, a lot of people vulnerable, immediately the word would go to weak. However, we see that vulnerable is not weak, right? Imagine you have imagine you have a woman who goes out on a date, right? And if she's holding herself back constantly, right? If she's constantly like worried, what's this guy going to think of me? And so anytime she has really an opinion or anything that she wants to say, or she's super, she's super reserved. She has some little quirky thing in her personality, but she doesn't say it because what's this guy going to think? So she's not being vulnerable. And it's not coming from a place of strength, right? It's coming from a place of weakness, right? On the other hand, if a person, a woman goes out with a man on a date and it's their first date,
figure this
and
out. Thank you very much. Have a great.
And she decides, you know what? Listen, I don't know if this is going to work with this guy, but I have nothing to lose. I might as well just be myself, right? I'll put myself out there. If he likes me and I like him, great. We'll move forward. If not, so then also, okay, great. Like it's just I want to be authentic. So and she goes ahead and she's flowing and she's being herself and she's sharing her feelings on things, and maybe she has a little quirky thing and she just goes with it because that's her being authentic and real. Is she in a state? She's putting herself out there. Is she in a state of is she being vulnerable? Is she putting herself out there in an authentic way, in a vulnerable way? Yes, she's being vulnerable. Is it coming from a place of weakness or strength? It's coming from a place of strength. So vulnerability is really rooted in a place of strength, and we have to understand that that relationship and control are actually opposites, right? Relationship and control are opposites, and this is one thing that I find to be a big stumbling block for a lot of women in relationships is this aspect of asserting unhealthy control, right? Because relationship can only happen when we put ourselves out there, when we share our authentic feelings. Yes, make requests or whatever it is, to share it from a place of sharing, but not from a place of being attached to an end result, right? Because anytime we're doing anything to control or manipulate the situation, anytime we are doing anything like that, so we're undermining the authenticity of the choice of the other person, and we're not going to be connected to authentically, right? Does vulnerability guarantee that the person, if you're putting yourself out there, sharing what you would like, right? Like, for example, a woman says, "I would love to go out on a date with you this week," right? That sounds much better than "you never take me out on dates anymore," right? That "you never take me out on dates anymore" is right. There's an aspect of giving over of trying to twist the arm of the other person, of showing them that they're going to have hell to pay if they don't go ahead and go out on the date, right? So why doesn't everyone just share in an awesome and authentic way? I would love to go out on a date with you sometime this week, right? Which, by the way, would work probably a lot better. Why? Because there's a certain vulnerability there. You're sharing and you're putting yourself out there and you're leaving it open without the pressure of like being angry and all of that, right? So why do people do that? Because underneath that, there's a fear, right? There's that fear of rejection there. However, if we want true, authentic, connected relationship and emotional intimacy and connectivity, the only way to do that is with vulnerability, is with expressing ourselves in this way that's with and yes, it's true. The person might say thanks, but no thanks. That could happen. But vulnerability is the fertile ground upon which relationship can grow. If we're asserting unhealthy control, anytime we're asserting unhealthy control, we're paying a price in emotional intimacy. We're paying a price in connection and relationship, right? So yeah, that's super important. And just, I don't know, and also in terms of what else is another aspect of this concept of chomer also is actually a good example of this is in dating. A lot of times people in dating are looking to find someone, or a lot of women are looking to find someone who either matches them, or if we're really not in the best of places, we're finding someone who can fit into my family, right? We're finding someone like this family picture, and then there's me over here, and I'm going to try to fit that guy right there in the context of my entire family. However, I think a better and more healthy and more actually conducive to success in dating is to ask ourselves, when we go out on the date, is this someone I want to align my life with? Right? Is this someone I want to align my life with? Is this someone who I want to hitch my wagon to? Right? They used to call getting married, getting hitched. Is this guy someone whose life I want to hitch my wagon to this guy's vision, to this guy's direction, to where he's going? Is this someone I want to align myself to and align myself with? Is this someone I want to be of service to? Is this someone I want to be of support to? Right? And by the way, what does that look like? What does that mean to be of service to that person? What does that mean to be of support to that person? Right? So I want to share with you, and maybe we'll close with this. I want to share with you a quick conversation that I was having with a couple I was dealing with. So this is a conversation I had with the woman, because I said to her that she should, for certain things were going on with the husband, I said be of service to him. So she said, what do you mean by be of service? So I said, well, if I told you be of service, but it wasn't in reference to your husband, instead it was in reference to a different esteemed person you were going to be around, how would you take it? What would it mean to you then? And so she responded, take care of their needs. So I said, yep, that's level 1. Level 2 is to take care of their wants. Included in this is their particular tastes, such as doing things in the way they like them, etc. And so she wrote back, 5-star hospitality for my husband. Got it. And I wrote back to her, sure, with a smile and true simcha. And then she wrote back, that's another level. So this is what it looks like to be in a state of respect, right? In terms of respectfulness, right? This aspect of being aligned and connected and giving the husband a feeling of that, right? And I know it's hard a lot of times for women to get, but whatever that feeling is when you're on that date, when you're in that moment of feeling cherished, of feeling loved, of having a gift given to you, or being celebrated in some way, or going on that date, going on that trip, you should understand whatever that is. That's like the relationship at its peak. That's like when the relationship, you really feel like it's happening. So what I just expressed is when the guy feels that same feeling, but for the men. And anyway, so all of this can be seen, and there's obviously, this is just a quick intro, but all of this can be seen in this concept of the masculine and feminine, and it's all rooted in these spiritual principles of what it means male, what it means female. And so there's a lot more to share about this, but this was just a quick overview. But anyway, if people are interested in this kind of these kind of teachings, if people are interested in this kind of work, either on their own or with a spouse or whatever, so you're definitely welcome to find me. I'm pretty easy to find, but you can, my email is elithejew@gmail.com. That's right. ELITHEJEW@gmail.com. You're welcome to reach out, make a time. And if you have any questions or anything, don't hesitate.